Hey, Osirish, have you gone through the Swedish line, or have you not started it yet? Great games, by the way. Um, why, yes, I have. Hi, folks, and welcome to the Ace Tanker for the, and pardon the pronunciation, the Stridsvagen FM21. This is Sweden's first tank, so therefore I think it's appropriate that it is the Swedish Tier 1. Yes, this is a Tier 1 Ace Tanker, feel free to switch off. But the Stridsvagen FM21 story doesn't really begin in Sweden, even though it's Sweden's first tank. In fact, this can trace its ancestry straight back to the very first tank ever built, the Mark 1. You see, in December 1916, the developer of the Mark 1 proposed a new light tank in Britain called the Whippet. It carried a three-man crew, it was lighter and more mobile than the Mark series of tanks, and the prototype was developed in just 2 months. In March 1917, the prototype passed its trials, and 200 of them were ordered, built and shipped to World War One, shipped to France. So it performed well in combat, and so well, in fact, a further 200 were ordered. Now, the Whippet isn't a tank we have in game yet, but it would be maybe a nice addition as a premium gift tank, maybe. But anyway, the additional order of 200 of the Whippets was cancelled in favour of the Medium Mark B and later variants of the Medium Mark B. But regardless, the tank was in combat. The Whippet was in combat against the Germans. The Germans saw the Whippet and said, oh, that's something we don't have, and they decided to design their own version of it, which basically, it was almost the same tank. So they took the Whippet, they renamed it the LK2, or the Lichter Kampfwagen 2, and ordered 1,000 of them to be built in 1918. But World War I ended with just 10 of them being built. Now, during World War I in 1918, Sweden realised that simply being neutral wasn't enough. They needed to modernise their army. And to modernise their army, it meant that they needed tanks. So the first thing they did was they approached the British to buy the Whippet. But the price tag was too high and Sweden declined. So instead, in 1919, they approached the Germans to have a look at basically the copy, the LK2. And Germany agreed to sell them the LK2 despite the Versailles Treaty preventing them from developing or selling tanks. The Swedes wanted some modifications to the LK2, which included a fully traversable turret and other minor design changes, and the Germans agreed. They made the changes, and then after the changes had been made, they stripped the 10 tanks that existed down into separate parts, stuck them in boxes, labelled the boxes tractor parts and boiler parts, and shipped them to Sweden in 1921, where they were reassembled and renamed the Stridsvagen FM21, and as I say, became Sweden's first tank. Now, Sweden didn't have any tank building history. They didn't really have an infrastructure in place for supporting tanks. So therefore, when the 10 tanks were reassembled, spare parts still had to be sourced from Germany. So even though Sweden had 10 tanks, only 5 of them were used in trials or in combat practice, and the other 5 were used for spare parts. And it stayed that way up until 1927, at which point Sweden were finally in a position to start making the spare parts themselves. However, by 1928, just a year later, the Stridsvagen FM21 was considered obsolete. So Landsverk were tasked with upgrading them and giving them a new engine, testing out some new guns, and basically a handful of the FM21s became upgraded and became renamed to the Stridsvagen FM21 29. These handful of upgraded tanks remained in service as training vehicles up till as late as 1938. But that's pretty much it for the history. So this is a German tank. It's a Swedish tank that was built in Germany, designed by Germany, based on British designs for the Whippet, which was developed by the creator of the Mark I. So that's essentially the history. Anyway, we are going to go. We are here on Himmelsdorf, and it is a very, very fortunate matchup. A, because it's Himmelsdorf, and it's not Flaming Mittengard, and B, that it's an all Tier 1 game. All Tier 1s! How rare is this? Because usually when I was playing the Stridsvagen FM21, I was getting into Tier 2 games, and they were full, absolutely full of M2 lights. Yeah, very overpowered tanks, and this tank does not perform well against M2 lights. The armor, absolutely dreadful. The speed, actually, by the way, is about 22 kilometers an hour, which is historically inaccurate when this tank was actually built and did exist. It basically could only get up to a maximum of about 16 kilometers an hour, so Wargaming have made it a little bit faster to basically keep it in line with the other Tier 1s in the game. Other things you need to know is the gun is quite punchy for a Tier 1. It gets 33 millimeters of penetration, very good for Tier 1. 40 damage, again, very good for Tier 1. And unfortunately, the gun handling is not great, but then again, it's a Tier 1. The premium ammo, 44 millimeters of penetration, 40 damage, so again, premium ammo is okay. Not that much better, but it's okay. It will still pen most Tier 2s it faces. And yeah, other than that, it's got amazing gun depression, which I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm trying to have to go through so many facts. I only have so much room in my head, but we are here in Himmelsdorf, all Tier 1 game, as I say, and it's not Mittengard, so we're going to go. Yeah. First thing I want to do, and I've remembered to switch the tank names on and not the player names, so some of you are going to be happy with that, but first things first, we're going to head up to the 8 line, and we're going to be doing some side scraping, because even though this tank has amazing gun depression, unfortunately the choice of maps for it means that it rarely gets to use its gun depression. Rarely gets to use it. I mean, I could use the gun depression, I suppose, if I went into the middle of the map and went up to one of the windows here on Himmelsdorf. I could use maybe the gun depression if I was maybe playing in a couple of positions on mines, and you don't get to use the gun depression pretty much at all on Mittengard. So, yeah, it's very, very limited. So even though this tank has amazing gun depression, at Tier 1, the map choices really, really limit the biggest strength of this tank. So anyway, yeah, I was set up on the corner, not exposing much of my tank, and Kauzenka moved forward. Enemy team don't seem to be advancing, so just get rid of that truck so I get a clearer view on the tanks in front of me. And now, all of a sudden, I'm on my own. I'm on my own. I came up to help the Kauzenka, but he is dead. And now it is me versus at least 5 enemy tanks, and no one else on my team is over here to help me. I'm all alone. So I've moved into a side scraping position. We're just going to try and poke, try and get shots in. You can see that the aim time is awful. But, you know, at close range, sometimes the aim time really doesn't matter as much. But you can see how large this reticule is, just moving slightly, just putting shots in. I've got no support whatsoever. We take out the Leica tractor. Oh, what a mistake to come up and help the Kauzenka. But, yeah, we get a shot into the T1. Don't have enough alpha to track him, but thankfully he gets taken out by from someone across the map. And, oh, there's my first hit. So 38 damage, and don't manage to get another hit back. And there, the accuracy, the snapshot. At least my tracks absorbed the shot, but oh, now his tracks absorbed the shot, but we finally take him out for kill number 2. So a little bit fortunate, he hit the tracks, but yeah, I mean, it's a decent result so far. MS1 is last spotted on the mini-map up here, so we're going to advance, see if we can find the MS1. I'm going to use these wrecks for cover. And as I say, the biggest strength of this tank, even though it has very little armor, is it's got tracks, and it can side scrape. We're just trying to snapshot, which is not good. This tank is so bad at snapshotting. I finally have some support. So we aim carefully and unfortunately bounce, but yeah, we finally managed to pick up kill number 3, and now on the mini-map, we're under pressure in the south. Yep, 2 more STRV FM21s coming down the K line, so I've got to go back. And again, a lot of tanks on the enemy team not spotted yet, and there's a very good chance they went hill, so got to come back, got to support. And again, looking around, looking for, yeah, are any friendlies coming? I'm wondering if the Lick Tractor and the STRV and Spawn are actually AFK, or whether or not they're there. Spotted K Hazenka sitting up on the ridge, and now the one thing I don't want to do is get hit by this guy because he's going to hurt me. He's got a very, very dangerous derp gun, so once again we're side-scraping, get a snapshot in. Thankfully, oh well, he actually does pen me. He manages to pen me, but he's using a machine gun, so we can just move out. And now I'm getting shot from the side, and I've got to kill him, and I got to try and side-scrape. I think I must have taken out his gun or his loader or something, because all of a sudden he's not firing back, so a little bit fortunate there. I don't know why he didn't fire another shot into me, but got a side-scrape again. I'm down to 22 health. So many tanks suddenly appearing on the 9-0 lines. They all must have gone up the hill, but again we're side-scraping, got shots into this guy because basically he's exposing the front of his tank, can't get his gun on target. And, oh yeah, we got flanked. Just so many enemy tanks, but we are capping. We've got 2 tanks in the cap circle, and at least I kept the enemy team busy long enough for them not to get to our cap, not to go back and reset cap. So I picked up 6 kills, but I died, and I think we're just going to speed this up because we cap out to win. So a pretty hairy ace tanker with a little bit of luck, because at one point I was alone. In fact, I spent most of that battle alone against multiple enemies getting shot from multiple directions, and thankfully with a little bit of side scraping and a little bit of luck we made it through. So that was my first ace and only ace in the tank, because I sold it after this game. We picked up the top gun, finished top on XP with 835, 611 damage done, 6 kills, and as I say, again, very fortunate it was Himmelsdorf. Very fortunate it was an all tier 1 game and didn't have M2 lights running around, puppy kicking. Fired 31, only hit 22, so even though I was firing a lot of shots at close range, you could see the aim time on the gun is not great. Even if the gun is okay, it's a little bit derpy. Taking snapshots not very good with the gun, but you know, you don't spend that much time in a tank. It's a tier 1, you're not going to spend that much time in the tank to worry about things like that. I'm just happy to get it out of the way. It means I can continue up the Swedish lines. So we spotted 3, damaged 7, destroyed 6, 46 assistance damage, and finished up with a healthy credit earning for a tier 1, 16,500 credits with a premium account. And it was my first game of the day. It wasn't my first game of the tank, I'm sorry to say, but I was getting a lot of games in this tank where I was running into tier 2s and getting my butt kicked. But yeah, times 3, first game of the day, left me on 3,759 XP. So nice XP total. Had to use some gold to convert that over so I could use it to unlock modules on higher tier Swedish tanks. But yep, tier 1 is done. And to answer the question, yes, I've started up the Swedish tanks. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.